I'm Shankar Vedantam, here to tell you about a great mystery. That mystery is you. As the host of a podcast called Hidden Brain, I explore big questions about what it means to be human. Questions like, where do our emotions come from? Why do so many of us feel overwhelmed by modern life? How can we better understand the people around us? Discover your hidden brain. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you ever wondered why our attention spans seem to be shrinking? Or whether there's a cure for pathological lying? Or maybe you've wondered what's behind the teen mental health crisis? Well, the good news is there is scientific research that tackles these subjects and many more. Join me, Kim Mills, each week for the American Psychological Association's podcast, Speaking of Psychology. We'll explore the latest research to help you apply the science of psychology to your everyday life. Speaking of Psychology is available wherever you get your podcasts or at www.speakingofpsychology.org.
Previously on The Deep End.
Like, I don't feel like nothing I've done has ever changed who I am or my personality. Like, I'm still the same person. I just am suffering more or less.
And so irritability for me was at like a 6 or a 7 or an 8. Guess what? It's still at a 6 or a 7 or an 8. And so like my perspective to them on that is, it's not that the surgery didn't work. I guess I'm just like a cranky middle-aged dude now, right? Like that just is what it is.
Yeah, like you can't say his old self. And he never like wasn't himself through this whole process, right? It's just, he is more comfortable and happy and relaxed and productive and present and engaged. So the things that the disease was trying to steal from him, he's getting back. There isn't that cloud hanging over us.
So now, several years out from their surgeries, the volunteers I talked with are back to their lives. In today's episode, we're looking ahead too, to what's next for John and his family, and what's next for DBS. I'm Laura Sanders, and this is The Deep End. These days, the Nelson house is bright, full of light and laughter and kindness. When I visited, they kept offering me way too much coffee, and they insisted on putting their cool lizard Lizzie on my arm. John also insisted on taking pictures of it so I could show my kids later. The Nelsons are having a good time.
You have to laugh. You can't not laugh at this or anything, in my opinion. But my middle son, said to me right after, said, Mom, if you're mad at Dad, you can always hide the charger. I was like, oh, dude, that's too far. That is too far. So yeah, we have a healthy sense of humor in our household, for sure. Like, we'll even joke, like, we'll say something like, oh my God, you're crazy. We're like, no, we know you're like really crazy, but like, so we like to joke about it.
This family jokes about hiding John's charger and changing his settings. It's all part of their routine busting on each other for all sorts of things. When I was there, their middle son rated John a 10 out of 10 on the embarrassment scale. I won't even tell you what he rated his mom. They joked about how us old people don't understand slang, like riz and no cap and stuff that slaps. Their youngest son stumped everyone with a riddle. What is the only state that ends with a K? He didn't say, and neither will I. So for now, the Nelsons aren't just looking ahead to better days. They're having them. As I reflect on all the people who have talked with me for this story, I keep asking myself, why? Why were they so generous with their time? Why did they choose to tell me, and now all of you, about some of the hardest moments in their lives? Barbara Nelson is a private person, but even so, she's been incredibly open about her family's struggles.
it never occurred to me not to. It never occurred to me not to share our story. And I'm not like a super out there person. Like I'm very open about things, but I'm sort of private too. But I feel like because we know that so many people are struggling, that the more we talk about it, the better our society is. 100%. This is a shift in the right direction. And I just think it's really helpful to hear as either a caregiver, or if sharing my story helps a partner be more empathetic or stronger, or more resilient when trying to help, then that's really good. Because if you can like let go of all the armor and the importance of the appearance that like everything's great and perfect, and actually take those steps, like you can get better and your life doesn't fall apart. Like we don't have less friends because we told people the truth. We have more friends probably. So I think I never thought about why I might be willing to share our story. So off the cuff, I think that's why, because your life can get better. I remember hearing somebody say once, your secrets make you sick. And that I never forgot that. And I think it's true.
Patient 001 has the same desire to let people know about his experiences, to demystify depression, to let people know that even in the bleakest times, there's hope.
You're so frustrated because you're screaming out for help and they just don't understand. I feel that's probably one of the reasons I'm talking to you, even though I want to do it anonymously. I hope one day one kid reads what you're writing and then he finds DBS and he's cured, because that's what I did.
Amanda shared a similar perspective.
I think sharing my story is important because it helps other people see the way. It's kind of like a flashlight for people who are still in the dark. Like, here it is. I found it. Here's the way out.
Playing a role in this research was something that resonated with Amanda too.
It's really meaningful to me. I feel like I'm participating in something, that I'm contributing to something that really matters. That someday is going to be, because of this study and because of other studies, is going to change the lives of other people in an incredibly profound way.
Amanda's life has changed. That's clear when she tells me about one of her drawings that she did after DBS.
You know the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow? It always irritated me because I'm like, there is no somewhere over the rainbow. Like, that's a pipe dream, okay? Stop. Pretty song, but a pipe dream. And I was like, I found somewhere over the rainbow. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a house here. So I drew a picture of a rainbow, and there's cartoon Amanda, and she has built a house on the rainbow. She's like peeking out the door. What's that place like? You know, if you could describe it. Okay, pretend you're showing me the picture and like, here's your house. And what's that place? Like, what are the things about that place that make it over the rainbow? It's sunshine. So there's lightness and warmth and like literal lightness, like you're on a cloud. Like, it sort of feels a little bit like that.
These outlooks make clear the importance of hope, of a belief that things can get better, a hope that the science will get better too, that our understanding of depression will get better, that it won't be like this forever.
Hey there, I'm Dr. Maya Shankar, and I'm a scientist who studies human behavior. Many of us have experienced a moment in our lives that changes everything, that instantly divides our life into a before and an after. On my podcast, A Slight Change of Plans, I talk to people about navigating these moments, Their stories are full of candor and hard-won wisdom. And you'll hear from scientists who teach us how we can be more resilient in the face of change. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Neurologist Helen Mayberg's first paper describing DBS for depression appeared in the journal Neuron in 2005. We're 20 years out from that. DBS is still in the research phase. It is not an FDA-approved treatment available to people who might benefit.
It's that resignation of sorts that it isn't enough to do it, repeat it, follow people. It hasn't scaled.
In its current form, DBS is not simple or easy or even something that would be a good medical choice for a lot of people. That's what Mayberg means when she says it hasn't scaled. But science is often slow, and it almost never happens alone.
As a scientist, as a doctor, it's not my job to save the world. It's my job to save the people that I can save. And if I can only do so much to know what I can do and know what I can't do, but I can't do everything and I can't take on that responsibility. That's hubris and narcissism that I'd like to not claim.
As advanced as the science is, there are still big questions to answer. Like, why does DBS seem to work for some people and not others? How specifically does it change the brain? A new clinical trial announced in September of last year may help answer some of these questions. The medical technology company Abbott is funding a study that will include 100 people with treatment-resistant depression. They'll be recruited from all around the United States. All of these volunteers will get DBS. For the first year, half of these volunteers will have electricity flowing, and the other half won't. And at the end of the trial, all of these volunteers will have the option of turning it on. The study has already started. On February 6, a brain surgeon at Mount Sinai implanted a DBS device into the brain of the very first volunteer. This new clinical trial will hopefully clarify more about DBS and who it might work for. That's the question that Mayberg wants answered.
The variance is in human beings. The variance is who the person is that develops the depression. And everyone is different.
One of the things scientists are looking for are markers, ways to tell when someone is having a bad day or actually relapsing. John and Amanda are participating in follow-up studies, searching for signs of recovery in their brains. Scientists are looking for these signals in their body language and facial expressions, and even in their voices. In one part of the experiment, John spent 8 minutes twice a day recording his brainwaves, along with video journals and daily, weekly, and monthly surveys. From data like John's, Mayberg and her colleagues just described one such hallmark in the brains of 6 people who underwent DBS for depression. A collection of changes in brain behavior can indicate when a person has recovered. It's a small study, but it's progress. And here's the thing. A deeper understanding of what's going on in DBS could also point to the next kind of treatment. And that next better thing might not even be DBS.
I'd like to spend my time trying to understand the biology of what we did, because it'd be a whole lot better if you didn't need brain surgery and an implant. And I'm not the one to build a new contraption or miniaturize it or make it Bluetooth compatible. That's for engineers, and you have to have users to build more elaborate machines.
Changing the behavior of neurons deep down in the brain from outside of the skull, it's a very, very hard thing to do. Scientists are trying to figure out how to do this without brain surgery. They're using electricity, light, ultrasounds, and magnets to get signals into the brain from outside of the head. Other approaches are miniaturizing the parts that do go inside the brain and coming up with easier ways to get them in there. One method, for instance, relies on these collapsible electrode grids that can be threaded up into the brain through the jugular vein in the neck. It's wild. These approaches all have their drawbacks, but technology's always getting better. Just think about the first heart pacemaker. It was an incredible piece of technology, but it was giant and clunky. Today, the powerful device can be smaller than a matchbook, and it sits near millions of people's hearts, keeping them beating as they live their lives. The goal with DBS is similar: small, simple, seamless. For now, Mayberg says she's in realistic mode, trying to find out what's going to work for the most people. And getting there is a group effort.
Patients like John and Amanda and Emily, they're our teachers. They're our mentors. They're our collaborators. The most fun part of this as a clinician is to have the patients focus my attention to figure out what they're saying and then to actually get their feedback afterwards. There's not even words to describe that gift.
As Mayberg reflects on her career, she's philosophical about what she and her colleagues have done and what's left to do.
This is never where I expected to be. But you're here, so step up. Why wouldn't you step up? This is the experiment of a lifetime. It's even if right this second after this call I had to stop, I wouldn't trade it for 1 second, but I'd sure like to see the last inning, right? And we're all in. I'm all in.
The Nelsons are in a better place now. Their place is full of laughter, jokes, teasing, but in a nice way. There's a lightness to them, like Amanda's house over the rainbow. When I was visiting, the youngest son was twirling and gliding through the kitchen on inline skates, going around the loop. He made it 2 full loops before Barbara kicked him out. The Nelson house is full of hope for a future that's better than the past. Here's Barbara.
It just feels good to just be now. I'm really happy at the job I'm in. I'm excited about traveling and spending more time with family and friends. And that's really like what my focus is right now, and not trying to like advance in my career or have more. I just actually want less. And just to like, there's just this like sense of, like I say a lot, like nothing really bothers me anymore. Like there's really very little that will like get under my skin, because I'm just so grateful for every moment. And when he had the surgery, I felt like, over those first few months, it was like, I don't know how this is going to end up, but we got this, like we got this happy time. And even if that's all we get, even if it was 3 months or 6 months of relief, that's good. That's cool. I'll take that.
After his surgery, John sent Helen Mayberg an email that he shared with me. It was mostly a note to thank her for her work, for saving his life. But he told her about a before and after situation. Years ago, he was away at an inpatient treatment facility. And he and Barbara would both listen to this one song, Amsterdam by Coldplay. He read me the email.
I could relate to it well to my situation pre-surgery about fading away.
losing my mojo, and just overall sadness, debilitating sadness. The sadness was warming and relatable to me, though. It wasn't a negative thing when I was sick.
He could feel the pain and the rawness in the song, and it made him feel his feelings. Not in a bad way, but in a meaningful way. Now, after the surgery, after DBS, the song has changed for him.
I now still listen to it a bunch, and it's changed into being about the joy of fighting through it all and coming out truly live on the other side. It still captivates me, but with a new meaning and focus. Give it a listen. It's a beautiful song. Much love to all. Thank you for caring. John.
That change, that shift in perspective, that shift in his life didn't just happen to John. It happened to his whole family. With 3 kids and a packed schedule, John spends a lot of time in the car, shuttling kids to and from softball and field hockey, golf, basketball, ice hockey. On one of these drives, John and his youngest son were talking. He is still the emotional one. The kid who would crawl back up into Barbara's womb if he could. John's joke, not mine. He's the one who gets deep.
My son, driving home the other day from hockey, I always call it car talk with my families that I coach. I'm like, guys, when car talk with the kids, like emphasize these points for the game or this or that. And he just gets, we're in the car all the time because of hockey, but he's just like, Dad, I'm so happy you just kept fighting for us. Just these little comments that come out of nowhere. Like, oh my God. Like, obviously they get it. They understand it. And it's just a trip.
We're considering a bonus episode that addresses your questions, comments, and thoughts. Please send them to us at podcasts@sciencenews.org. If you or someone you know is facing a suicidal crisis or emotional distress, call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. As we wrap up, I want to say a giant thank you to John, Barbara, Amanda, Emily, and patient 001. Thank you for talking with me, and thank you for sharing your stories. Your perspectives opened a window into a world that a lot of us just look right past. Also, thank you for being so funny. I can honestly say I didn't expect to laugh so much reporting a story about depression. We're also grateful to the talented people behind the scenes that made this podcast possible. Beth Quill helped get this project off the ground. Luke Groskin made some amazing videos with John, Amanda, and Barbara that you can watch on our YouTube channel. You can also find transcripts and photos at our website, sciencenews.org. We'll put the links in the show notes. Our colleague Nick Ogassa lent his voice to patient 001. Abby Wallace and Mandana Tadayan ran our social media. Stephanie Kuo and Mike Russo from PRX guided us at every step along the way. Many scientists and clinicians, including Helen Mayberg and Shannon O'Neill, generously lent their expertise. We couldn't have done it without you all. And finally, thank you for listening. This is The Deep End. I'm Laura Sanders. If you liked this podcast, tell your friends or leave us a review. It helps the show a lot. Send us your questions and comments at podcasts@sciencenews.org. The Deep End is a production of Science News. It's based on original reporting by me, Laura Sanders. This episode was produced by Helen Thompson and mixed by Ella Rowan. Our project manager is Ashley Yeager. Nancy Shute is our editor-in-chief. Our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. The podcast is made possible in part by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, the John S. James L. Knight Foundation, and the Burroughs Wellcome Fund, with support from PRX.